Right guys, so I've had the warm-up. It went okay actually, the warm-up, so for a change, which usually that means I'm going to play bad, so we'll see what happens with that. But David, thank you very much for your time today before we start. Really appreciate it. You've got a fantastic facility here.
Thank you.
You've just been showing us this, which you got a bit of that, Chris, did you earlier? Yeah. So I'll throw it on the screen. It's amazing because it's almost like, I'm not saying you've ever watched one of my videos, David, but it's almost like you have, because that could absolutely transform my golf anyway.
Well, let's see.
Do you want me to go straight in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my problem is, it's either when it's good, but when it's bad, it's very bad.
Right.
So,
okay.
Without saying any foul language. That's the general bad one.
There. You got plenty of mass to have plenty of speed there.
Absolutely,
James,
yeah. It's been
so there we go. Without
a big
being
Christmas. Rude. Yeah.
All right. Let's see me have a look. Okay. So have you work on your game much, or you?
I try to, yeah. Not so much as I used to do. I used to practice a few times a week. Now it's more playing for fun. Yeah. But obviously it's only really fun when
you're playing well.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's something which
interesting.
For me need to try and improve on.
The great thing, I mean, the thing I like about Golf Zone, with it's the modern approach, shall we say, with being able to analyze, etc., and doing it indoors to me is a big plus. Yeah. I mean, it's funny how, even though you're hitting into a screen and you're seeing the results and so on and so forth, but it's not as demoralizing for players if they're topping shots, they're losing balls.
Topping shots, Chris. We'll overlay yours yesterday.
So I think it's a great learning environment, and obviously screen golf, as they refer to it as in Korea. Yeah. I mean, which is huge. I mean, bearing in mind they play more golf indoors than outdoors, and we've obviously starting all these facilities in the States now, and it's catching on over here now, especially in the metropolitan areas. Like we've just opened one up in New Jersey, and just across the river from. Well, you're basically down in New York. So it's interesting how the number of people that signed up for memberships. It's called Golf Zone Range by Leadbetter, and so there's obviously a practice component. There's an instructional component, and so I mean it's literally a couple of miles from Manhattan. So you've got a huge population. To call from. So, but they're intending to open these all over the country, and I think the fact that people don't have a lot of time to go out to the golf course, go to the driving range, and one thing or another, but they can pop into a facility, a golf zone facility, and really get a lot out of, say, an hour's practice. Yeah, and that's what it's all about. So, but there again, it's the old saying, practice does not necessarily make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So knowing what you're working on, having a little plan to work on. So even though, in your case, you might not have a lot of time to work at it, at least you've got sort of an idea and an outline in your mind what you're trying to do. Being productive rather than just... So it's like giving somebody, say, a formula, shall we say. Okay, do this, this, and this, maybe a couple little drills, etc., which I'm always a big believer in and have done over the years. If you go back to Sir Nick Faldo, as he's known as now. I mean, all the drills that he sort of worked on, because I always say it's three things to get the golf swing right or to make changes. It's concept, understanding what's going on. It's visual, having a good picture of what you're trying to do. And then the final thing is sort of feel, because the feel is you want to be able to take a feel out onto the golf course. You don't want to be going out on the course. Like
I always find when I play well, I have kind of one swing thought, and that's probably the feel base, isn't it? Because you can you guys probably relate to this at home if you're watching, guys. What is your swing thought that when you go out and play, I think of this one thing and I generally play a little bit better? Yeah,
I think it's always good to have something to focus on. If it's too detailed or you've got too many of them, that's why it astounded me when I asked Jack Nicklaus a few years ago. I said, Jack, so how many things do you think about on the golf course? He said, well, I could never think of more than 5. And I thought, oh my goodness, 5? I mean, the average person think of 5 things, they'd be on the tee for about 10 minutes over each shot thinking about it. So if you can get it down to maybe one key thought. You know, remember, obviously, Jack Nicklaus was a genius in many respects. So we can discount him, but for most people, say, you know, one swing thought is key, and normally sort of early in the swing, whereby hopefully that affects things that happens later in the swing. And you know, you seem to have analysed your swing fairly well. Let me see one more there, if I may. And maybe
this is the one, Chris.
Maybe we can get a visual from you down the line here. We can see it would be good, I think. So we can. Yeah, I mean it's. You know, I like. You know, you've got some good speed. You've got good compactness. It just looks like there's a sort of quite a bit of sort of roll away here, as we like to call it, and then you know there may be if the body gets a little quick from there, it's going to be a little late. If the hands get a little quick from there, it could be a little early.
Club face control is probably one of the issues for me, definitely.
Exactly. So we have a little tool here, and because I say I'm always sort of thinking out swing aids, should we call them? You know,
I remember the clicker one.
Yeah,
that was when I was a junior. Everyone had one of those.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and so it's to me that's what imparts the feel to a player, rather than thinking about everything else. But so let's see how this works. Okay. So you go ahead there. You just take your set up there, and I'll get.
Can I come there, Chris, and get it?
Yeah. Well. All right, so I'm going to put an alignment stick down here for you. In fact, we'll get a couple out here, James. All right, so remembering that the pattern's going to be pretty much the same, whether you've got an iron or a driver for that matter. So I'm just going to put this down on your toe line, okay? So we're going to be aiming, this is we'll call that the target line here. So we'll just see if I'm close enough here. I'm just going to, I want you to put the club right on top of it. There you go. Good. So now, the tendency would be, obviously for the sake of time, I'm not going to take it off and on, but this just clips on. But your tendency would be to sort of do this, where this sort of rolls pretty early, right? So we can see that, to me, the common denominator really with virtually all the top players is where the hands appear to move in and the club head stays out. So and you can look at, if you look at this line here, this yellow line, okay, we call this a straightaway because this actually needs to look straight away at this point. Imagine you're in a clock phase, so this is 6 o'clock here, 9 o'clock there. Obviously, if you're lefty, it would be 3 o'clock. But so we're trying to get to 9 o'clock. That's the whole thing. Where this is now parallel to the alignment stick. You see, so that to a lot of people who sort of tend to roll it like you do, they say, well, the club face feels way outside.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
and it feels closed.
Yeah.
You see, but in actual fact, if you look at...
Square to the arc, isn't it?
Yeah, it's square to the arc. And look, in actual fact, it has gone inside the line, but it hasn't gone rapidly inside the line, right? So we can see there we go. And literally, the takeaway is a very short movement, literally where the top of the club moves maximum about a foot, and the head moves about 3 feet. Obviously, it varies depending if you've got a driver in your hand, it's going to be a little bit more, but literally, say a foot, head maybe 3 feet, and the butt of the club is actually moving slightly inwards there. So it's like a little circle inside a big circle. There's a little circle where the hands follow, a big circle where the club head follows, and the little circle always stays inside the big circle. What happens, and especially you see with a lot of club golfers, they whip that thing in behind them. They take the club back. And so that's why I'm not a big fan of the word takeaway, but people use it so often.
Yeah.
It's actually you're moving away because you're actually trying to move it away with your core. Okay? It's like, think of your belly button moving the club away.
Yeah.
And as long as you keep your left arm connected to your chest, that's all the technique you want. And that's why you see so many players today rehearsing this move.
Yeah, I like that.
It's what we call it the modern waggle. Because in the old days, players, even Ben Hogan sort of had this sort of look going, and even Jack Nicklaus had a bit of this going. But to me, I love that old saying, "As ye waggle, so shall ye swing." The old Scotsman saying that. But most people, their old waggles, hopefully they didn't swing it like that.
Yeah.
It's just it's like flicking a bee off the end of a club or something. But you can see so. And actually, the way to train yourself is, I'm going to move this out of the way, is to actually hit the odd ball starting from there. I always say you want to split the swing up into two.
Yeah.
The start, okay, which sort of sets the trend as far the way the hands and the way the club head's moving, plus the fact that you've got this connection between the hands and your body. So this is what we call the synchronization of the swing.
Yeah.
But you actually want to hit balls from there. So just make a make a swing from there, complete your backswing and go. And you'll find it'll probably put the club on a slightly more vertical plane, slightly.
Yeah, rather than...
And the club will be, not that with your build you want a long swing.
Yeah.
But it'll definitely get the club more online because yours tends to be a little bit flat and laid off.
Yeah.
Because of your early roll.
Yeah.
So it's like if you fix the start, there's a good chance of fixing the end.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, we mentioned about that one swing thought earlier on in the lesson, and my swing thought's always been just try and pick it up. And I've never really had the...
Right.
Like when you said keep the left arm to the chest,
right.
Obviously, I mean, I'm PGA Pro myself, I've given golf lessons, but that's not something that I've tied into what I've been trying to do.
Right.
So that's really
helpful.
Well,
that's people too tend to, in other words, for somebody who swings it inside, the natural reaction will be, okay, well, come on, swing it out and feel like you're swinging outside.
Yeah.
But that's really not the fix.
Disconnected, isn't it?
Yeah, it's disconnected, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's do that again. So take your setup there.
Do you want me to hit a ball? Shall I set this onto iron?
Yeah, let's set it onto iron. There we go.
Isn't it funny as well, because... what is a 7? We'll go with that.
There we go.
Whenever I've given lessons as well, or anyone that goes for a driver lesson, you always hit a few drives and then it always comes back to something more manageable, doesn't it, to work on the technique of the swing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's just make sure this is sort of on your toe line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the alignment has to be key to this as well, doesn't it?
Exactly right. So, you sort of get your initial target line here and then you get this one parallel to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good way of being able to sort of make sure you're lined up correctly, and then just say, just that's it, and relax your arms. The thing is when you sort of try to position it, you've got to literally swing it. Yeah, okay, so just relax the arms. You can see, so that's why your navel and your core really wants to feel. It's almost like if I had a medicine ball here, okay, heavy medicine ball, okay. The only reason these are moving is because this is moving.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, I've coined a phrase. I read a book in 1989 called The Golf Swing, which was, we used David Frost as a model, and it was really the basis of all of our teaching all over the world, all the academies and training teachers at all the golf zone facilities, etc., is that the dog wags the tail, okay? So you think of instead of, most people, the tail wags the dog, right? The dog being the body, your body, and the tail being the, obviously the hands, the arms, and the club. So so let's just rehearse that again. And you'll hit a shot there. You might take a few shots just to get used to the timing of this, but I actually predicted years ago somebody would actually start the swing from here, and because they say that most issues happen in the first 3 feet of the ball.
That'd be so interesting to try and play around a golf like that, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean I've got players that do it because it's like they, actually I've got a player on the European Tour, young player, Sean Crocker, and I mean he stripes it for me. He says, I'm honestly, he said, I'm threatening to actually start from here. I said, well, that would cause some interest, that's for sure, or create some interest, I should say. But anyway, so take your address there, you go, and just relax. And so here's the test here, James. Okay, here's the final test here. So I've got the club here. Okay, now I want you to bring your feet round and face me. Just get your feet. Okay. Now put the club down. You're in the same position you were to dress.
Yeah.
It's really a little test there.
Because
you see, I mean, obviously if you were start where you were, just to show you, then we'll let you hit a couple. If you were, your tendency to do this. Yeah. Okay, now turn around and face me. I mean, look, you wouldn't start like that, would you? Hopefully.
No. I suppose because all it's doing is moving around on an axis, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah.
So you're just shifting your dress position here, and really the business area of the swing starts from here.
Yeah.
You set it on plane, and I'm not suggesting, hey, some people set it steeper. I mean, I've always been a big believer in maybe setting it a little steeper. Some players want it on one plane. Some players want a flatter swing. Some players, teachers, I should say, want a more upright swing. Some coaches want, a bowed wrist, a neutral wrist. So, hey, whatever. But the key is get your start right. From there, you can do whatever the heck you like.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do it again. So soft with your arms, the first movement there. You can see. There you go. See? Hands are in.
I wasn't even looking at that then. I was trying to just remember what we did.
Right. Look where that is now. Yeah. Perfect. All right. So just relax and go ahead and from there. So stop again.
Yep.
All right. So get it to that point. All right. Let's see here. I'm just going to there you go.
I tried a bit much there, didn't I? Yeah.
That's it, right. Do it again. Don't manipulate it, just let it swing. There you go. That's it. Perfect. Right, now finish your backswing and go. There you go. See that? I mean, that looks pretty natural. I mean,
yeah, it feels like if given time, I feel like that could be something that.
So just complete your backswing, go ahead and hit it. Yeah. So it'll give you a really good feel. And to me, see, the visual is so important because once you've seen that, and you just repeat it. But you know, to me, I would say your inconsistency is probably the takeaway. Yeah. And I would say virtually 100% of swing errors can be traced back to the takeaway. Yeah.
Can I get one of these?
yeah, we'll get you one, absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, no problem.
I really appreciate
that helped.
It does help. So I think, guys, what we've learnt there is there's hope. There's hope. Work on that takeaway with all the clubs. Then it's going to go through to the drive. Then we'll hit more fairways, hit longer drives, and beat Chris even more. Just
one little story. So I remember when I joined Callaway way over 20 years ago, Eddie Callaway is still alive, and he said, David, you and I were in the same business. I said, really, Eddie? Why is that? He said, well, we're in the business of selling hope. So you think about, hey, Callaway sell clubs because people hope they're going to hit it longer and better, and, longer and further and straighter and so on, but longer and straighter. And people take lessons from us in the hope that they're going to improve. So
Well, on that note, we'll finish. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that, smash that subscribe button below. What a fantastic day at the Golf Salon at Leadbetter Academy. And apart from that, I'll see you all at exactly the same time tomorrow. Bye.